If you've ever stood in your kitchen wondering what can my kid actually eat today, this episode is for you because gluten-free life with kids is not always easy and it's definitely not Pinterest perfect, but it is doable. So today I'm going to walk you through what that actually looks like in real life. We are going to read how I read labels quickly, how we set up our kitchen to stay safe, and what school lunches actually work in our house. And if something feels unclear, I skip it. Let's talk about labels because this is where most of us feel overwhelmed, especially in the beginning. When a product says gluten-free, it means it meets the FDA guidelines, so it shouldn't contain ingredients like wheat, barley, rye, and it has to be under a certain threshold of gluten. But something I didn't realize at first is that companies aren't always required to test the final product. So for me, that's where I started being a little bit more mindful. Next, we have certified gluten-free. You might also see products labeled as certified gluten-free. That means a third party has verified it, often with stricter standards and testing. It doesn't mean regular gluten-free isn't safe. It just adds an extra layer of confidence. So for me, the biggest learning curve was realizing that sometimes something looks gluten-free, but then in small print, it's made in a facility that has wheat. So now, if something feels unclear, I don't overthink it, I just pass on it. If you're unsure, skip it. What confused me the most at the beginning was situations where people would confidently say something was gluten-free when it actually wasn't. So for example, chocolate M&Ms. My daughter loved them more than anything, and people would say, oh, it's fine, just check the ingredients. But nowhere did it say gluten-free or certified gluten-free, and that uncertainty was really hard. That's when I realized I need my own system, not just opinions from others. What I look for in 5 seconds. Now I keep it really simple. I scan for gluten-free, certified gluten-free, grain-free, and then I quickly check for obvious ingredients like wheat, barley, rye, or malt. And then I see if I can notice anything unclear, like certain starches or vague ingredients. And if it's not labeled grain-free, gluten-free, or certified gluten-free, I just skip it. You don't need to memorize everything or analyze every label. You just need a simple system that helps you make quick, confident decisions. Okay, so this is probably the biggest shift for most families, the kitchen, because gluten-free isn't just about the ingredients, right? It's about how we handle food or how food is handled. So something I fully didn't understand is cross-contact or cross-contamination. That's when gluten-free food comes into contact with gluten. Even something as small as little crumbs or a shared utensil. So instead of trying to control everything perfectly, we just created like a simple system in our kitchen. Here's what that looks like for us. When it comes to storage, we keep gluten-free foods separate. If they're in the same cabinet, gluten-free always goes on the top shelves, and we put our gluten products on the bottom shelf. Sometimes I'll even keep things in sealed bags just for an extra layer of protection. Next, toasters. We have a separate toaster. This one is non-negotiable. Toasters hold on to lots of crumbs, so even if it looks clean, it's not safe. Cleaning and sponges. We also have separate sponges and cleaning tools. This sounds small, but it actually makes like a real big difference for us. Foil hack. This is one of my favorites. Simple tricks like using a foil as a barrier. If I'm using a shared pan or any oven space, grandma's house, my sister's house, I'll just grab a piece of foil so the food never directly touches the surface. That's my foil hack. Tools and utensils. For things like cutting boards, utensils, and even strainers, we keep them separate or make sure they're cleaned really, really well before we use them. If you have a wooden utensil or a cast iron, it's kind of better to just dedicate one for that. Condiments. Condiments are a big one. Butter, peanut butter, salsa, anything people dip into can easily get contaminated. So we keep separate ones, or in our family, we have a no double dipping rule. Cooking order. Whenever it's possible, I try to prepare the gluten-free food first, before anything with gluten. It just reduces the risk and it just takes away some of the stress. Here's how we made gluten-free life doable in our kitchen. Okay, so welcome, and I want to show you how we keep things safe without making it complicated. Let's start here with the toaster. This is one of the most important things, and we have a separate one just for gluten-free, and honestly, this is non-negotiable. Even if it looks clean, crumbs still stay inside. Now, I'm going to show you something called the little toaster bags. These are reusable. You can take them with you and they're safe, especially for if you're traveling or you're going to somebody's house. You go ahead and grab the bag and you just put your bread in this little brown reusable bag and you toast. But at home, we're going to stick with a dedicated toaster. That's the safest option. Over here, we have separate sponges, two of the same containers. We have a yellow sponge, which is for general use, and our red one, which is for anything gluten-free. I would have labeled them, but we decided to use different colors. This is my foil hacks. You grab foil, and this is one of the simplest things that you can do, and it makes such a big difference. Any kind of shared space or oven space, the foil acts like a barrier. For storage, gluten-free foods are always separate, and usually we put them in the higher shelf and the gluten goes on the bottom. That way there's a less chance of crumbs or anything falling into them. For things like cutting boards, utensils, strainers, we keep them separate or cleaned really, really well. Next, condiments. This is a big one. Butter, peanut butter, salsa, anything people can dip into easily can become contaminated. So we have a no double dipping policy, or always make sure you use separate utensils. This isn't about having a perfect kitchen. It's just about having a system that works for your family. Let's talk about school lunches, because honestly, this is where expectations and reality don't always match. I'll be honest, there are definitely lunches that came home untouched, and at some point I realized this isn't about making the perfect lunch. It's about making something your child will actually eat. For us, one challenge was that Sophie loves peanut butter sandwiches, but the school doesn't allow peanut products. So I had to rethink lunches completely. And honestly, that's where keeping things simple really helped. So, One thing that worked really well for us was using gluten-free biscuits like these from Capello's buttermilk biscuits. They fit really easily into her Planet Box Rover lunchbox, which I love because it's stainless steel, dishwasher safe, and really easy to clean. And I don't have to worry as much about residue or needing a completely separate sponge for it. What I also love about the Planet Box is that it has separate compartments. So if you want to try something new, like gluten-free chocolate-covered pretzels, I just add a small amount without changing the whole lunch. That made trying new foods less overwhelming. And something really, really special happened later on. Sophie started bringing things like Annie's fruit tape in her lunch, and she realized she could safely share that with friends. And honestly, that boosted her confidence so much. Sometimes it's not even about the food itself. It's about helping your child feel included. So now I focus less on making lunches perfect and more on making them safe, familiar, and enjoyable, because that's what actually makes gluten-free life sustainable. So if you're in the stage right now of figuring out what meals labels your kitchen, and you're not alone. This isn't about doing everything perfectly. It's about creating a system that works for your family, one step at a time. If you're navigating gluten-free life with your child right now, I hope this episode helped make things feel a little bit more manageable. Remember, this doesn't have to be perfect. Small systems, small changes really do add up over time. And in our next episode, we're going to sit down with a pediatric dietitian to talk about helping your child heal, grow, and thrive on a gluten-free diet, including nutrition, common concerns after diagnosis, and practical advice for families. Thanks so much for listening to Little Tummies Big Challenges, a podcast helping families navigate life with celiac disease and raising gluten-free kids.